Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Town of Taber Council meeting for August 15th, 2022. I will call the meeting to order, and we have a administration request to add an item to the agenda related to item 7.13 that involves the dignitary flag flying requirement for our Corn Fest visitors that are attending from the Calgary Japanese Consul General Office in Calgary. So if all are all right with that, I would ask for an adoption of the agenda as amended, please. Councilor Brown.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, no public hearings. Adoption of the minutes, item 4.1, minutes of regular meeting of council, July 18th, 2022. Mr. Thibault.
The July 18th minutes are in front of council for your consideration and adoption.
All right, thank you. Any questions, concerns? Someone prepared to make that motion. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make the motion that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on July 18th, 2022 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5, business arising from the minutes. There are none. Item 5.1, pedestrian crossing system location recommendation. Mr. Thibault.
Mr. Gary Shear is going to come forward and provide the information around this request from the traffic committee.
Thank you,
Right,
Mr.
Mr. Shear.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
From our traffic committee, we've had recommendations for, well, we looked at 4 different sites for the pedestrian crossings. One was suggested by Councillor Bruin, 47th Street, 50th Avenue, KFC with 50th Street, 47th Avenue, and 50th Avenue, 41st Street crossing, and 50th Avenue, Westview Gate crossing. So just a bit of background, we did set up barricades with signs, pedestrian counts, and it was a 2-week period, so we went in and out, all was the same. You see the data, if you could point to the data, please. The data that clearly says that the busiest crossing is KFC, is no doubt. So from the traffic committee recommends that this year's remote flashing light crossing lights are put on that location. But we also would like next year's, which is the 50th Avenue and 41st, to be recommended for council so we don't have to come back. Because if council accepts another capital purchase for next year of the flashing lights. And with that, I'll take your questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, just wondering, is it taken into consideration the any traffic backup with that main intersection there?
We had looked at that too. I did contact a traffic engineer. He doesn't think it would be any concern because naturally the pedestrian has right away, the minute they step out in the crosswalk, traffic's going to back up whether there's flashing lights or not. So that's their recommendation too, is that yes, we can move forward with this. And we looked at this with the 49th Street, 51st Street crossing, sorry, that there is enough room. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
Kind of a follow-up from Councillor Rudds. Is there a time can we shorten the flashing light period on that one maybe? Just because the 150th does flash. Is there a guideline or is there?
I don't think there's a guideline. I think you just push the button and it flashes.
For a minute or however long?
Yeah. Well, time, and I think we can set the time for the amount walked across, but you have to realize that we'll set it a lot longer in case somebody is in a wheelchair or things like that.
Absolutely, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, we've only budgeted for the one this year.
That's right.
And would we get a better price buying 2?
No, it's the same price.
No.
We're lucky to get one. It's supply and demand again.
Okay, because I think it's important and a life is worth a lot. If
Exactly.
we see a need for another one, maybe perhaps we should look at doing the other one as well this year.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So by the diagram of location 1, so there's a pedestrian walkway on both corners then. Looks like over by Panago, and then also there's one on the corner of KFC.
That's correct.
Okay.
So where that number 1 is, that's where the crossing would be.
Okay. I'm just wondering, it seems quite congested with the railroad track and the lights and so forth. If there was any thought into just moving it just back a little bit to where the Panago street crossing is, just to maybe deflect the crossing a little bit away from the railroad tracks and the congestion of the highway.
So you're suggesting that we move it back almost to that other crosswalk there?
I was just wondering if there was thought to that or not.
The trouble is there is parking there. There's no real corner at that corner, right? So there'd be more of an angle. And I know our police chief does not like angles on crosswalks. He stated that at the traffic committee numerous times, and he does not like these, but this is about the best we can get. So one thing we can do, I guess, is just, have the flashing lights a little bit farther each way, but I mean, that still stops them. Like I said, though, pedestrian, when it steps out in the crosswalk, he has the right of way. That person has the right of way, and no matter how many people are coming down, they still have to stop.
Just further
Sure.
discussion as to just thought of that, just because it is so close to the railroad tracks and already the backup of the traffic. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, all things considered, I think it's going to enhance that safety side because the flashlights are definitely more visible. Right now, people coming from the west particularly sometimes show up last second if whereas if there's flashing lights in that, hopefully they're doing their part and pushing the electronic button required. But that will definitely be an item that will be noticed as opposed to the way it is now in comparison. So if you look at the current flashing light system we've got, it stands out, like you can see that for a mile, literally. It's very, very well set up that way. So I think it only enhances, it only makes that much safer, and it was the highest profile, highest concern
It was, yes.
on the target.
And there's no reason why we couldn't put it in for 6 months and reassess.
Right.
If there was problems, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so just based off of your study that you did, I guess more people are using that, like crosswalk, right, versus the other one. So even if you put the lights further down, I don't know, people are gonna go where they wanna go, right? And if that's where they're most using it, then I think that's kind of where you wanna put it. I know the congestion is a real big problem, but what do, right? You just don't want people to get run over. Like there is already a lot of congestion, and so maybe having those high visible things will help with.
But pedestrians
With the
already are
pedestrians.
using it. The same,
Right,
the same
yeah,
people
exactly.
are going through it.
Yeah,
And it really
so-
hasn't backed up. So whether you have lights there or not, I think it just makes it more visible
Way
and
more
safer
visible.
for the
Way
pedestrians.
safer, yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Right. Great. Thank you, Councillor Rudd.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd be prepared to make a motion. I understand that there's going to be congestion there, but you've answered that, you've considered that, and the traffic committee's taken all things into consideration, and the reassurance that if it's not working, we're going to change it. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I make the following motion that council approves the proposed location of 50th Street and 47th Avenue for installation of the 2022 pedestrian crosswalk system, and that the next location be the 50th Avenue and 41st Street crossing once the additional system is approved for purchase in the capital budget.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Firth also had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will speak in favor of the motion. Just further discussion about the congestion. That is a busy intersection, and I mean, when there's a train, you can see traffic backs up all the time. But I would prefer this crosswalk to the one further north, just because this one actually connects to our walking trail and to a sidewalk on the other side, whereas the crosswalk that's a little bit further north, it just comes into what's basically the parking lot of the arena. So, yeah, just speaking in favor of the motion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 6, bylaws. Item number 6.1, clean energy improvement tax bylaw. Mr. Tebow.
We'll have Mr. Blake Ranick come up, and we are just looking for first reading on this one.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Blake.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon.
I am here to present you with the first reading of the Clean Energy Improvement Bylaw. You guys are all aware of the background, so do you guys have any questions?
All right, any questions arising? Councillor Bruin?
Matter of procedure, can we do all 3 readings tonight, or do we have to wait?
I don't believe so. We did talk to administration. There has to be a period of public hearing for it, I believe.
Okay, my thoughts are winter's coming, people are looking at getting replacing furnaces if needed and whatnot, so the sooner we can get it done, the better.
All right, thank you. That's correct. Mr. Tebow, right?
That is correct. There has to be an advertising period between first,
Right.
second, and third.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Sorry, my memory's just not that great.
Sure.
And so it just says the financing required from the program is 1.6 million. But again, that, can you just explain again how that works?
Sure. So what our intent is to go through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, Community Efficiency Financing, and that they would give you a loan for the 1.6 million that doesn't go against your current debt loading of the municipality, and attached to that would be a grant up to 50% of the total loan amount. So if we're applying for 1.6 million, we would be eligible for about $800,000 to cover overhead and operating expenses for 4 years of the program.
Sure.
And so for the administration of the program, it would be a town administration?
It would be, so through the legislation of the Municipal Government Act, actually it's the Alberta Municipal Service Corporation. They manage the web portal, onboarding contractors, the payment, all that stuff. So once we get the program up and running, we're pretty much hands off.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, I just got a question at 4.5 of the bylaw. It's, I think there's some typos in it as well, but it says that the period over which the cost of each eligible clean energy improvement will be spread, and then it gets a little jumbled there. Maximums over the probable lifetime of the improvement, and where the repayment amount does not exceed the taxation amount for the property in question. So I'm not, I mean, I could read it one way, and it says, you know, that your repayment's not to exceed your tax, your property tax. So sounds to me like, how do you collect the loan back if you're not adding on to it? It's just not very clear to me. I wonder if you could just go over that for us. Thanks.
So I think what they're referring to is if your property taxes are $2,000, you can't go over that amount, but you still pay your property tax at $2,000. So you can't make it an additional $2,500. You can only make it up to $22,000. So you'll be paying $4,000 back. So it's in addition to your property tax. That's what that means, yes.
Yeah, that doesn't read that way to me, but
No,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to recoup.
So we can make that adjustment.
Yeah.
You can bring it back for the second and third, make sure it's clear.
for sure. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, because then it says it does not exceed $50,000 for residential, sorry, and for, and for multi-unit residential. So is is that per person or for I'm just trying to follow up with that, so then
For the
if
amount.
the property tax.
So that is your house. So if
Right.
I bought windows, and whatever else was $50,000.
Yeah.
That's the maximum you can borrow through this program. And then your payment depends on the lifespan.
Oh, the
of-
payment,
The
I
payment
see,
depends on the
can't
lifespan
exceed.
of what you purchased.
Yeah.
So if your
Right,
windows are
that makes
30
sense to
years,
me.
you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
over
yeah.
a 30-year span.
I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
I'd like to make a motion there, Mr. Mayor, that council gives first reading to the proposed clean energy improvement tax bylaw 15-2022 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 7, action items. Item 7.1, additional capital expenditure Bull Boat project. Mr. Tebow.
So Mr. Shear is going to remain sitting and field any questions. This is not a new project, but a bring back of a pre-existing project.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Scheer?
So this is a project we've been looking at for downtown. It's a Volvo project. It's the only one that's missing. So it's on 48th Avenue, 52nd Street. When we reviewed this over a year ago, costs have gone up. They've escalated quite a bit, but we did add a little bit underground. We found out there was clay tile underneath there. We need to replace that before we do any surface works. There was an additional cost that basically to replace the pipeline of about $55,000, but the other escalated costs, that other $245,000 is, I guess, supply and chain demand. So we always try to look at this just before it goes out for tender, and it is out for tender now. And we realize those costs have gone up. That doesn't mean that's what they come in at. We're just an engineer's estimate, but we want to make sure council's aware of that. We would ask for extra funding to ensure the project moves forward. Or I guess council could say, look, we'd rather see how much it comes in at, and you could have a special meeting of council next week. And I guess there's the final option to say that's just way too much money. We don't want to move forward with the project. So we'll leave that into council's discretion.
All right, thank you. Councilor Bruin?
First off, I vote against doing this balled out. I voted against it the last meeting when it came up. That's a lot of money to spend on a ball belt, which I believe will cost us at least 6 parking spots downtown, if I'm correct. We do lose parking with this. I think it's a waste of money at this time, and I vote not to do it at all.
All right, thank you. Just for some clarification to start with, I think, Mr. Tebow, first off, we have authorized the project initially, correct?
We've authorized an expenditure of, $400 and some thousand dollars
Yes,
initially,
okay.
yes.
But this is now an add-on requirement that was not available to us a year ago, correct, Mr.
Yeah,
Scheer?
that's correct. When we looked at this funding,
Okay.
we had the engineer's estimate at $477,340, which is the ball boat portion. The town pays 25% of that naturally. I have been in contact with them, and I wrote them an email saying we've had cost escalations. Is there any chance we could get additional funding? I haven't heard anything back, so I can't tell you if there is or not. So
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we are using some grant money for this ball boat. If we decided to hold back and not do this, could we use this grant funding for a different project?
no, it's a one-time deal. This is what the project's for. They're very strict on that,
Okay.
and it ends in March 31st of next year. So if we don't move forward with it this year, the ball boat will be, this portion of the project will be gone. Doesn't mean you won't still receive funding for the murals or brackets and banners, but this portion will be dead. We'll contact them on that.
Can I just ask?
Sure, yep, you bet.
So the clay tile and the underground piping doesn't need to be repaired no matter what, so we're doing some construction anyways?
Well, it needs to be replaced, yes.
Yeah.
That's why the clay tile and the asbestos cement water line. As you can see from the estimate, it wasn't that much. It was $55,000. But we should do this because it's not going to last the life of the asphalt and the repairs of the surface works, which is estimated about 25 to 30 years.
So it's a good thing
It's a
to
good
do
thing just to
anyways,
fix it, yes.
regardless. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Rudd?
Yeah, my initial, I'm hearing other answers here too, and filling in some blanks, so it just seems an awful lot of money, but the grant, we have a grant, so we're only paying 25% of that, and where was that coming from?
So that 25% was allocated from a past federal gas tax for 2023. I shouldn't say past, future federal gas tax for 2023, which is, I think, Canada Building Infrastructure now. But all the money, none of the money came from the town at that time. It was all grant money. Now we're asking council to put some more money into it from the reserves.
So that'll come from our capital then?
That's right.
Yeah, and the number looks to be what?
About 202,000.
202,000, okay. That's good, thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. while I'm not thrilled about any project being over budget, I think the opportunity that we have to complete this with mostly grant funding, I don't think we can pass it up. It's one more bulb out that will complete the main street. I think they do add something to our downtown. And I would be in favor of, I mean, it's not ideal, but if we have to put a little bit in and hope that those tenders come in under budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have considerable agreement with Councilor Bruin, what he said about the cost of this particular project. However, we've gone down this road before. The $202,000, Mr. Scheer, that's our portion, but you did apply for additional grant funding for that portion, correct?
Yes, I requested it, but I haven't heard back from this for additional funding on this project.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
What's your feeling? What's your gut on that, Mr. Scheer?
I have no idea on funding. I won't even consider it.
Come on, commit yourself.
You know, we could ask Mr. Orwad, is there anything on MSI next year that we could put towards this, things like that? But I don't want to put him on the spot at this time. Even though I just did.
I don't know, Mr. Orwell, have any information on that at all? Is that possibility?
Well, there could be a possibility, but there's no commitment at this time.
Right, okay, thank you. I guess just, and was there any deadline on this one? I know we've been waiting on, there is a deadline to when we're supposed to be made aware,
We have to
yea
have
or
this
nay?
total project wrapped up as per the contract by March 31st.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yes, I know that, I did hear that, but I meant for the additional grant. You've applied for additional monies to cover this, but is there any deadline on that?
No.
When we expect to hear?
I haven't heard anything back. I
So
would
we don't know
expect
when that
something.
might be. You've just asked again regarding the project continuation? Okay,
That's right.
all right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you scroll down and look at the picture, the second picture there where you have the diagram? And the last picture. Now, if I look at that picture there, we're going to lose, I thought, of 5 parking spots by putting these bulb outs in. We have a problem with parking down in that area already. We're talking about designating a parking just for electric vehicles in front of the Legion, so that would take another parking spot there. So we're gonna spend $600 and some thousand to put some clay tiles in that aren't gonna make us a dime. They're gonna lose some parking. And I'm strongly against this project. To me, it's a waste of money. We have other things we could spend that money on.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I can appreciate losing some parking space, but we're also trying to beautify the downtown and improve the conditions. My only question is, I'm always thrifty with my money. Is there anything that we could scale back on this and complete in maybe a phase 2 in order to complete this project?
Not that I'm aware of. We have a sequence of events we have to move forward with. I mean, we actually have to do the underground, we have to do all the surface works. The
Like I
only
was
other
thinking-
part might be the street lighting, which we're still hearing from Fortis. I think there's a $50,000 allowance on that. That could be put off till next year, but no matter what, council's gonna be paying for that.
I mean, with the bulb outs, like the trees, the benches, I don't know what,
There isn't.
there's minimal
No,
stuff?
it's minimal, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
The underground pipeline that you want to replace, that was just discovered. Like it wasn't in
We
the
had
plan.
a sneaking idea, but we finally got down under camera and says, no, we've got to replace this.
So to replace that, you'll be tearing up the pavement there, I would assume.
Yes, majority of it we ripped up anyway because of the bulb out to make sure that we have proper drainage. There was always 2 catch basins to be put in, so those 2 catch basins were going to be put in there. They're in the other tent.
So with or without the bulb outs, you'll still be tearing up the pavement
Yes.
there. So
Yes.
the bulb outs are just an extra if we want to do it at the same time, basically.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion at this time.
All right,
Okay. I move that council directs administration to add $202,420 to the 52nd Street and 48th Avenue bulb out project with funds to come from the capital reserves, and further directs administration to award the project as per the council-approved procurement policy.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. All right, on to item 7.2, tax penalty waiver request. Mr. Thibault.
Looks like Mr. Orwa is going to come up to present, and maybe his shadow Mike, I believe, or Michael.
All right, thank you.
Good
Mr.
afternoon,
Orwa.
the mayor and members of council. So I just have my intern. This is his last day, and this was part of the work plan. So I had to go through with him one of the RFDs, and I picked the tax one. So we've gone through with him through the tax bylaw, through everything and what needs to be done. So he's just here to shadow me, and probably if I miss something, I will ask him to help me out.
All right, thank you.
So technically before you is a tax penalty waiver request, and we get these things from time to time after 30th June of every year. And this year we only have one request. And I think probably, I don't know whether you've gone through the letter, the reasons why this particular individual did not pay the taxes on time. And I think when it comes to issues like this, I just turn it back to council, because it's only council who has the authority to waive any penalty when it comes to taxes. So I think we attached the letter. If you can go to the letter, the next one, reasons why this particular individual did not pay the taxes on time. And you can see this individual was mixed up with some paperwork and a lot of things happening. But I think I'll just leave it for council to decide.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, Michael, can I ask you a question? Yes. If you're in agreement with that recommendation? All right, thank you. Very good.
Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the tax bylaw is quite clear.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Very well. Councillor Firth.
How can we argue with that advice? While I sympathize with the business owner, the tax bylaw is quite clear, and with that, I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
I move the council does not waive the July 1st, 2022 tax penalty in the amount of $1,195.56.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.3, West Trail Extension Committee requests. Mr. Thibault.
So we will have Brian Martin come forward and speak to this. This was something that was sitting with the West Trail Extension Committee. So a few members here are familiar with that meeting that took place just, is it last week? Yeah.
That's correct. Yep.
Yes, so the committee met last week, discussed some of the phases of the Trout Pond Committee that they had been working on that haven't really been getting done, and suggested that the following projects that are on your request for decision be prioritized in that order, using the funds from the remainder funds that are in the budget for the Trout Pond project. And they were accessible path to the shoreline, playground, a day use camp kitchen, and to extend the camping into the next phase of campgrounds.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So these 4 suggested projects would all occur next year, sir?
We hope to have them happen as soon as possible. Some of them are based on supply and demand, getting contracts out, tenders, and so on. Some of them can be done fairly quickly, but most likely they will be into next year, yes.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow up?
Sure, you bet.
Yeah, so are these 4 projects then based on order of proceedings, or is it just a random number, 1, 2, 3, 4?
That
For
was
example,
all-
I would not be in favor of doing extended camping area at the present time.
Yes, these were in order, the committee, as their priorities. So the fourth being the camping was the lowest priority of the committee.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering where this money, the 562,000 is coming from. Is it grants received, or is it actual tax dollars that have been allocated to this project?
This was actually the initial amount of money that was set aside for the Trout Pond development. So this is the remainder of the funding that's for that.
And so it's, maybe Mr. Orwa could just answer if it's from a loan that we receive, or what is it called? Yeah, do we get a loan and this money is from that loan, left over from the loan? The 562,000, is it grant money received? Is it a loan that we took out for this whole project and it's just sitting in an account?
No. Just for clarification, the 562 is not a loan. Now, just to put everything to perspective, the Trout Pond started almost 4 years ago, if I'm not far from the truth. And the funding, the total Trout Pond funding was about 2.18 million. And out of that, part of it came from federal gas tax, part of it came from MSI, and the rest was coming from reserves. And the project has gone over the years, I think up to 2020. 2021, there was very little happening, and again 2022. So now, if you take, for example, the 2.18 million, the total expenditure to date, end of 2020, was about 1.5 million. So that we were left with about 662,000 left on that project. But when we passed the 2022 budget, we brought in 100,000 for the irrigation. So that one passed through. So now the 662 less the 1,000 for irrigation leaves us with 562. To get back to your question, it's not a loan. Now, when a project of this nature happens, the total amount has been allocated. If it's not used, we carry it forward to the following year. But in this particular case, this was not carried forward, but was left in the reserves. So that money is still sitting in the reserves until council feels like it's time to pull that money out to complete the project. I hope that helped.
All right, yeah, you bet.
So it actually could be allocated to other projects if this council sees fit?
Well, whatever is in the reserves is open for usage for any project. But in this particular case, it is money that had already been allocated to Trout Pond. The only difference is that it was not carried forward year over year. So we just pulled it back into the reserves until something like this comes up, then we can revisit.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Sorensen, a lot of this money too is donated money from Mr. Ferguson. They donated to the Trout Pond. It's been earmarked for the Trout Pond since we started the project. So it's not that we're taking it out. It's been always earmarked for it. The Trout Pond's been very busy this year. It's going to look fantastic when we're done. So this is what the committee recommended. The quicker we can do it, the better. It gets more expensive every year we wait. So that's why the committee passed it as it is.
Right, thank you. Councillor Rudd.
Yeah, it sounds to me from Mr. Orwa's explanation that it's money in the bank already. It's sitting there. Okay.
That's correct, yeah, thank you. Councillor Firth.
I was just going to clarify that the source of some of it was a donation from Mr. Ferguson, but Councillor Bruin stole my thunder. So.
That's right, perfect. Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How much is the camping used out there?
Right now, it's fairly minimal. There's not a lot of tree coverage, and that's part of what's in there. The description of
Right.
we did successfully get the 2 billion trees grant, so there will be more trees going in, so it'll make it more desirable once that's rolling.
Right. Follow up?
Sure.
So then, can we like put off the extent of the camping until that like is used more or utilized more? Or is that something that the committee feels like we need more camping spots?
I would assume that the committee would have to decide on that, but it is the last of the phases that that haven't been completed in the initial plan. It was a 5-phase plan. So the extension was in those phases, so that's just why it was the last in the,
Right.
in the order of operations there.
Thank you. Councillor Bruin?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't there this weekend, but I believe the weekend before that parking lot was overflowing with people. It's become very popular. Accessibility to the shoreline for disabled people is a necessity. A playground out there would be fantastic, and of course, following a day-use kitchen and extended camping is just a natural flow with it. And really, the cost of one bulb out would do all this.
Good point. All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Councillor Bruin. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering about the irrigation because it is very dry and, you know, it could very much use, and the aesthetics of and beautification of the area would help. So just can you clarify the irrigation?
The irrigation tender is closing this week, I believe, so we'll have it awarded probably within the next 2 weeks. And construction will begin as soon as we can possibly get rolling.
And it'll extend that whole area, including the campground?
Yeah, it's going to go
sites?
from about the trail behind the washrooms over to the end of the campsite and then to the trail to the west.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a follow-up to and clarification for Councillor McLean. The reason that the committee, like there was a lot of discussion about why these priorities are the way they are, and because the camping hasn't been extensively used as of yet, that's why it fell to number 4. And these projects are dependent on the funding that's available. So we have that allocated $562,000. So we figured that those first 3 needed to be done first, and then if we have some left over, then yes, let's extend the camping and finish it, you know, as the planned phases were.
Yeah, thank you. That's correct. And also, just to clarify back to the William Ferguson donation, I don't know if that was clarified, but it was actually $900,000 that was earmarked for that project as part of that donation procedure. And also, just to clarify, the accessible pathway to the shoreline, that's actually wheelchair accessible, correct? So it's to the shoreline and or the beach area, however that seems to fit the mold in that for that purpose. Perfect. Thank you. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question for our fire chief, actually. With a fire ban on, would the day-use camp kitchen be limited use? Like, because, you know, with a dry summer, is that like limiting your use to a camp kitchen or no?
If you can field it, Mr. Monshaw, go ahead.
Thanks, great question. Basically, our camp use or our fire ban is currently based on wood products. So as long as it's briquette, gas appliance, would that be fine? So as long as it's not fueled by wood.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just be prepared to make a motion.
All right.
So I make a motion that council directs administration to move forward with the following projects in the order as described below.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, on to item 7.4, Weed Control Act, Municipal Inspector Appointment. Mr. Thibault?
So there's no representation from TPS here for this. It is an appointment that is required through the Police Act, I believe. It's something, when we get a new name, that that person has to actually be named and council decision to be made on it. So while they're not here, I think this is pretty standard and straightforward. And without this appointment being made, then we have no one who can oversee the weed control. So it's here for council's decision.
All right, and that is an annual requirement, right?
I don't believe it's an annual requirement. It's only when we get a new name. And so this person is somebody new who hasn't been designated previously.
All right, very well. All right, Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. Does this not fall under bylaw, like duties, enforcement?
It does, but it requires council to make an appointment of the person to have this happen through that bylaw.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just be willing to make the motion, and I wish this gentleman good luck, Constable. Good luck.
Sure.
Council appoints Constable Austin, Weersink of the Tabor Police Service under the Weed Control Act of Alberta as a municipal inspector for the town of Tabor to carry out this act and the regulations within the municipality.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 7.5, radar speed sign policy renewal. Mr. Tebow?
It looks like Mr. Scheer is just itching to get up here and...
He's there.
Hopefully my
Mr.
last
Chair.
one of the night. So this came from the traffic committee. Basically, we're saying that we don't want any changes to this policy. It's just a simple renewal. This has to do with our radar speed sign, and it's going to be a portable sign as it always was. We get valuable data wherever Tabor Police Service wants it to be located, and we actually help slow traffic down. Plus, we can track what speed they're going and things like that. And the last one kind of went missing and was discovered all over Tabor. But anyway, we're asking council for renewal of the policy.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Bruin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So how many of these signs do we have now?
So we have the one that's stationary
Yes.
here on 48th, and this one will be portable.
And we haven't purchased it yet?
Yes, it's actually sitting at the shop.
Okay, so it is available to
Yep,
be
it
used?
is available. As soon as we pass this, we can get her out.
Okay, well, I'd like to make the motion then that council approves the radar speed sign policy PSPW-3 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.6, write down of assets policy. Mr. Tebow?
Mr. Orwa, I suspect, is coming up to speak to this.
Well, thank you very much again, members of council. So this is just part of our 3-year policy review, and we have 2 today. The first one is write down of assets. And of course, after reviewing them, administration is not recommending any changes at this time, especially for the write down.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion that
All right.
council approves the write-down of assets policy CS-FIN-2 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Or Councillor First, sorry, did you have anything? All right. All right, moving on to item 7.7, write-off and disposal of assets policy. Mr. Tebow?
Thank you, sir. John will speak to this one as well.
Well, again, that also follows the write down. This time we're writing it off. And again, I'm not recommending any changes. And one of the reasons why I don't do that is these things follows what they call public sector accounting board. And whenever there are changes there, we also have to adjust. But there's write down and there's write off. And we're not changing any of the policies at this time.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising?
Councillor Beckering seemed to be having a question. I can clarify.
Councillor Firth?
No question. I was just prepared to make a motion, but if Councillor Beckering has a question.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Beckman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Orva, explain to me in detail what's write down and write off.
Well, I'm just laughing. Thank you very much, because I knew where it would come from. I always explain this in the audit committee, but I'll take another chance here. So when you're writing off an asset, basically, it's the same as claiming that it no longer serves the purpose. So you dispose that asset, you write it off. But when it comes to write down, this is more of an accounting term that is used to, for the reduction in the book value of the asset. So if the book value, the carrying value is less than the book value, they write it down. And writing down of asset is very, very rare. Now, you'll see it in most of the public companies, dealing with planes and all those things, but it's a policy that is also adopted by public sector accounting. Now, you'll find that common in businesses that produce, and sell goods, write down the technology that they're using. Sometimes that technology, the carrying value is, less than the fair market value. So what they do is when the auditors come, we say, this particular asset was 10,000. Now we are writing it down to 8,000. Then they give the reason. The reason why it is technical, I don't want to get to that, is because once you write down an asset, you affect our tangible capital asset. So what that means is we have to restate our financial statements. So that's the difference between write down and write off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council approves the write-off and disposal of assets policy CS, or did I do the right one? Yes. Policy CS-FIN-3 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.8, information for council. Mr. Thibault.
So this is just an information item for council. There is no motion required. We have two items to mention: the traffic committee minutes, which are attached, and just a follow up to our two streams of immigration that we had applied for that we got approved for the second stream.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if we can get an update of now what the next steps are for the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. I know there's a brief description, but maybe am I throwing you?
Chris, are you able to speak to that? Looks like he'd love to speak to that.
Absolutely, great.
So the two major activities that we'll now start in is engagement with the community and generating the committee, sort of standing up the administrative side of the program that we're going to be involved in. And then the second component is hiring an economic development assistant, which was approved at a prior meeting, that will help us in that endeavor. So we'll be a certain period of time. It won't take us too long. So we're meeting tomorrow night, starting to engage the community there. And then we're meeting Thursday with immigration services from Lethbridge that are going to play a role. We've already met with several other of the key players that we intend to engage to help us fulfill the mandate of the program. So, but the next step is really standing the administrative process up and get that going.
I just want to applaud administration for moving forward with this so quickly. And, yeah.
All right, thank you. And there is quite a lot to this also, right? That's fairly involved, obviously. Thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we're discussing this, Chris, might as well go up there. Since we are hiring a part-time administrative assistant in your department, I think it's about $60,000, something like that. And we're looking for a whole bunch of partners, right, for the MD, for example, and and other entities. Is there any thought given to cost share the cost of this particular expenditure? Thank you.
So that was originally discussed as we were trying to determine how best to proceed with the entire approach and program. The MD itself, while they're included as guests of the town of Taber, along with Barnwell and Vauxhall, probably we expect like 95% plus of the proponents to come from town businesses and users. The MD, while they have a great need for seasonal workers, one of the key components is an employer must offer a permanent position, full-time position. And so unfortunately for them, they won't be able to utilize this particular program very effectively to address their needs. But they still wanted to support us and be part of the process.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, and no motion required on that one, so moving on. Item 7.9, standing item council requests. Mr. Tebow.
So there's not really any updates to report on this one. It's been tough to solidify things over the summer holidays with a bunch of overlap between myself being gone and directors being gone, and I think it's been 6 or 7 weeks since I've even seen some of these folks in administration eye to eye. So I suspect that we'll have some movement on these items at the next council meeting.
All right, thank you. Any other standing item council requests? Councillor Sorensen.
I was just wondering if we could get an update in the irrigation for the dog park, or if that's in the works at all. I guess there's some users that find that the grass is clumpy and the ground is uneven, and so they're wondering if there's any thought into perhaps providing irrigation to that area.
I guess I can kind of speak to that a bit. I've had a recent discussion with a couple of users that asked about just that, maybe the same people. But we have had delegations before to kind of ask for certain things like that. That council has directed recreation in the past to enhance within reason for different amounts, and some fundraisers have been done in other areas as well. So that's been brought up just recent to myself in the last 2 weeks, I'm going to say. So I did actually direct him to Brian Martin and/or Chris to discuss that further as a possibility, to bend your ear on those particular topics, and/or you could likely provide better direction than I can in that regard. And they're familiar with the delegation process also. So that was kind of where we left it, and I don't know if you gentlemen have heard from anyone at all in that regard.
We haven't heard from them specifically, but it is a identified need for our department to look at providing some irrigation out there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Rudd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had been communicating with Mr. Shearer on an issue on the south side with the drainage swale that comes out on, I think, 41st Street or something. And Mr. Shearer is aware of which one it is because he's been communicating with the person who owns the land next to it. So in your response, the stormwater, the swale is not doing its job anymore. It's there's standing water issues and a break that prevents the water from cleanly emptying out, and therefore you get the standing water. So that was the issue that was raised by the community member about that, and then of course it's just getting overgrown and everything. And so I appreciate the response you're giving me, that it's that you're trying to get the landowners to clean up their debris so the stormwater can run down the swale. You also point out that it's not on their property. So would that not be our responsibility then to clean it out and make sure that it operates properly? Or where do you see it ending up?
Well, more likely, we will go in and clean it up, but we have to make sure that our residents don't, some have stacks of wood to burn on top of the swale. So it's just a matter of getting the information out. You can't do that. We have to allow stormwater to flow, and please keep it clear. Plus, we're going through a survey because there seems to be a couple panels there that have raised, so we might have to go there and replace those, but Mr. Leach is just going through that process now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
Just as a follow-up to Councillor Rudd's, is this the issue we spoke of before with the behind the houses there?
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
understand a ticket was issued to someone over standing water or dirt debris in this, and
Not that
there
I'm
is
aware of, but-
from what I've eyeballed, there is an obvious swale that needs to be rectified.
Yes.
We have talked before.
Yes. And this seems to be reoccurring. Every other year we go in there, we clean it up, and we come back again. So this time we're take a better survey and to ensure that the stormwater flow, but the residents need to be responsible also and stop stacking things on the
Yes.
swale.
I think, to be fair to the developer at the time, didn't do a great job with the drainage there. It's basically a shovel-finished cement drain that really wasn't done properly.
I can't comment, I wasn't here at that time, yeah, but
Thank you,
it should
Mr.
drain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Counselor Sorensen.
I was just wondering if there's potable water at the Sandy dump that's north of town.
Yes, there is.
There is.
But we can't consider that potable water because of the fecal matter in the area.
Okay.
The minute somebody dumps, it's no longer potable water, we consider it non-potable.
So do we have a other designated area close by that people can fill up their potable water?
Not at that point, no. Usually around a sandy dump, there is never any potable water. You usually have to pull away and I forget where you do get water here. Your house, obviously, but.
Yeah, but like just visitors to the area, if they were able to get potable
I think the trout pond has an area. They have a hose there you can hook up.
Could I make a recommendation that maybe we put a sign up for users to just note an area where they could fill up for potable water? Would that be?
And I don't know if that was actually in the Chamber of Commerce one too, that there might be a fill station and sandy dump there. Usually the fill station and sandy dump are separated, but we can look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, you're talking the dog park with the potable water available
Yep.
there? That's what you mean?
You have to keep
Okay.
a certain distance from the sandy dump.
Right, yeah.
You just can't mix the two.
Can I make a motion then, Mr. Mayor, just to make some type of sign to note to tourists in the area where they can actually get potable water, if it's the trout pond, if that's the nearest location?
All right. Yes, we can do that. All right, motion on the table. Any further discussion? Counselor Bruin?
The sign at the Sandy dump, does it say non-potable
It
water?
says non-potable,
It
yes.
is clear that,
Yes, we're very sure of that.
yeah, okay, just, that was,
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to make sure.
That's under health and regulations and
Yeah.
over environment, we have to.
Because I have been to some Sandy dumps where it doesn't clarify, and no people do fill. But
Yeah,
it's
and that's
fill.
wrong.
It's fill at your own risk.
Yep.
All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Any other standing item council requests? Counselor Bruin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a standing item, also a compliment to the Versat Hockey School. I understand was very successful this year. They're very happy. 155 participants. I understand that there will be a contract coming up with those folks soon, and I'd like to hope that our administration does all they can to keep them happy there. It's very, very important to the community, I think. Brings in a lot of families for a week, and it's really good. Very well done, too.
All right, thank you. Anything else on that note? Okay, no other motions required then. Moving on to department reports. I'll go through them individually. If you have any questions, just stop me accordingly, please. Starting with the Planning and Community Services Department report. HR Department reports. Finance Department reports. Engineering and Public Works Department reports. Oh, sorry. Counselor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. There is an item that says AESO Demand Response Program received 2 call-outs in July. I was just wondering, clarification, what is the AESO program? Oh.
This is a program where we have developed in recognition of power. Anytime there's more power demand for the grid, we've actually joined this program, and they've asked that we run our treatment facilities on our generators so that the more power go back in the grid, and they actually pay the town to do so. So we're generating some funds through that program. We actually get paid standby and through that program. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Counselor Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On economic development, just some of the projects that are underway. There was some detail that we were prepping for an August 2nd investor to visit to Tabor and also working with 4 new businesses looking to open in town. I don't know if that's something for open session, or can we get an update on that? How could we get an update on that?
Mr. Tebow?
They're not my department reports, so I don't know what can and can't be disclosed. I don't know if you're aware, Mr. Egan, just coming back from holidays, something we could get back to you on perhaps if we don't have an answer currently.
I just think if I'm familiar with that, that probably is some closed session discussion, actually.
Yeah.
Right?
I can hold it till
Yeah.
then, Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. On to Public Works Treatment Facilities Department reports. Fire Department reports. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the follow-up on the big industrial fire we had, has that all been settled? And have we looked at what is being stored there and if they're within the right area for the industrial area there to have what they have there? And I see it hasn't really looked to be cleaned up much. Is it safe? And I've had questions about it.
You know what, Mr. Tebow, just to clarify, and sorry not to rain on your parade, Councilor Brown, but I'm not quite sure we can actually discuss all of your content here.
I was going to defer it to Chief Munshaw. In generalities, we could probably make mention of something, but specifically, probably not answering everything. So I would defer to Mr. Munshaw if in fact there was something more to disclose or not.
Hey folks, thank you very much for that question. There is a lot to that question. So first off, we'll say the fire has been completed and insurance has identified its completion. As best I can go what the end result on that investigation is. Last portion that I can really talk about is, has there been an inspection and is it within a proper fire code at this point in time? We have re-inspected it. It meets the code by compliance, although maybe the looks of placement may not be in accordance with eyesight, but according to fire code, yes, it is in compliance.
All right, thank you. On to Administrative Services Department reports and CAO reports. No other questions arising? All right, no motion required. All right, moving on to Mayor and Councilor reports. Councilor Sorensen, will you start us off, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended just 1 or 2 meetings. We had a financial meeting for the Police Commission, just talking about budgets. And then I believe we had one just other recreational meeting. But other than that, I've just been getting sunburnt and more freckles over the summer.
All right, thank you. Councilor Rudd? Yeah, yes, I did, sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just looking at the freckles. Yeah, it's been a quiet summer. I've been to a couple of meetings, helped out the museum committee with their casino night, and and anything else I was required to do, I attended. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've attended a few meetings. Everything's going well. I'd like to commend the town on how good it looks. They've done a great job this summer. Things are looking really good. I attended the fight night that Joel Mills put on and Aspire Entertainment. That was fantastic. The job they did there. I'm not sure what part the town played, but they were thanked for all they did in that event. It was good. Hopefully we can have more events like that. And again, I'll give kudos to the Versat Hockey School. How what I'm hearing back and how successful it was, that's another good thing. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended all the meetings I was required to attend, as well as Communities in Bloom dinner with most of council for the national judges that were here. Our Communities in Bloom group in town does such a great job, and I hope that those judges recognize that. Also attended a mural meeting for for the Arts and Heritage Committee, so looking forward to seeing some murals beautifying our downtown soon. I attended a Cornfest meeting. Cornfest, shameless plug, is coming up August 25th to 27th. I'm sure you all know, but looking forward to it. And I also helped out the museum with their casino night. Councillor Rudd has more pull than me. He got a day shift and I got a night shift, but it was good and always a good cause. And also I wanted to give a shout out to some of our summer students in the recreation department. As part of the Tabor Minor Baseball Board, we were cleaning out the shed and some of them came and helped, and they were an immense help. It was a hot day and a dirty, gross job. And I just wanted to say thank you to the rec department and to those summer students for what a great job they did. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much to report. I attended the Communities in Bloom supper also, enjoyed it. It was very good. Very active group, and I felt young there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended a few meetings that were required, and I also attended the Communities in Bloom dinner for the judges. It was very nice, and I also attended the library open house. The library looks awesome, and my kids really enjoyed it, so it was pretty good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for myself, I also attended the Communities in Bloom event. Very well done, as always. Also attended the meeting related to the Cornfest planning. A variety of other meetings with myself and Mr. Thibault as well, regular document signing requests. I was also invited, as was Chief Munshaw, to a funeral service for Mr. Ron Levigut that actually passed away last September. The service was just in the last week and a half, I guess it was. Not this past weekend, the weekend before. So it was kind of under personal invite, correct, Mr. Chief Munshaw? And that was a very well done event, a very positive, appropriate celebration of life. And I just want to give a shout out to Chief Munshaw and the fire department also, that I found out later, and the chief being very humble, as well as a lot of the members are, that don't normally get this word out, but the word was said, and I was advised that Chief Munshaw and the fire volunteers were responsible for setting up the tables and the event at the Parkside Manor. So big shout out for you guys all taking care of that, and for the guys and gals that took part in that. That was very much appreciated. And that's some of the things that our Tabor Fire Department does that goes unseen far too many times. So just like to commend you for that committee involvement as well. So thank you so much. I also attended the SATRA, Southern Alberta Trail Riders Association event down at the Forks. Participated in that as far as one of the stations fundraiser for Halo. That went over very well. 25 or 30 riders, raising several $100 for Halo. So that was also very well received and very good cause. I also attended the Filipino elections presentation that they haven't had for the last 2 years. That was a very well done event and very well received, and those people do know how to have fun, and very good for including us in that regard also. So with that would be my report, unless there's any questions from anyone. All right, no motion required. All right, so just a question for council. Next up is actually myself and Mr. John Orwa to do a presentation. However, we do have a delegation at 5 o'clock, so I believe we're probably going to run past the 20 minutes. So my question is, are you okay with a split presentation, or would you rather break and hear the delegation and then? I don't know, we were just talking about it before. It's, well, it's after a delegation, so we're kind of in a dilemma here. That's what my ask is for council. Any comments before we start, if you like, and just what's your...
2 to 15 minutes.
There's quite a fair share involved there, so I don't know that we can do it. Time-wise, we're kind of guessing, but it's probably closer to half an hour, actually, all things considered. That's all right, Mr. Rowe, about that? About that. So, again, that's my ask, is that we can certainly start it if you like, or Councillor Firth?
I think we should start, and then if we need to pause at 5 o'clock for our delegation,
Yeah.
then we can do that. We don't want to keep our delegation.
Perfect, yeah, definitely don't like keeping a delegation waiting, so with that, we will certainly start, item 712, the 2022 SIAD delegation presentation. There's no popcorn unless you ordered it, Councillor Broom. So as you're aware, we did do a Kenya visit, myself and Mr. John Orwa, under invite from the governor's office sometime back last winter, and approved by council to go to Say County regarding their twinning ask, and that's a continuation for anybody that's not aware of that from the 2018 visit with our SIAD delegation. And we had a memorandum of understanding at that time to go further with this, and with the pandemic and everything else, that's basically what delayed that. So it was a governor's office request to invite myself and one other, and Mr. John Orwa attended as well, and to deal with the twinning arrangement. Garbage truck ask to get over for their purpose, for their benefit. Irrigation, water, wastewater, collaborative efforts, and exchange visits that may involve an educational component. So we did have a $12,000 budget, and our expenditure was $10,961, $1,039 returned to the town of Taber Finance Department. So we are under budget and making our financial expert, Mr. John Orwa, a very happy guy in that regard, right? So I believe those figures are accurate. Okay, so with that, if we can just start this off, and I believe Megan's going to help us out with some of the video format. And so I'm just going to join you, myself and Mr. Rogan, and use the main mic there. All right, so to start with, this was our arrival in Kenya at the international airport. Myself, the deputy governor on my left, and on my right, our protocol officer, Stellar, who was assigned to us and with us the whole duration of the trip, right from start to finish, and also Mr. John Orwa in that photo as well. Just carry on. That's Dr. Benny and myself on the actual arrival night. We got in 12 or 1 o'clock, I believe, in the morning, somewhere in that range. And for whatever reason, there was some delay there, 2 or 3 hour delay. And I think our invitees waited some 3 hours for us to get out of the airport with all the security requirements, et cetera. Again, this is Stellar, our protocol officer, on our way to Sumo the following morning, and just an hour trip, I believe, roughly, to head to Sumo in Say County. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Orwa for now.
Thank you very much. So what you're seeing there is traditional dances. They call them the Dodo dancers. That was assembled to welcome the mayor, and I think in a while here you'll be seeing actually how they were dancing and how the mayor was dancing to the tune. So those pictures quickly shows them dancing. The other one is the mayor joining them with the governor. The governor, you can see everybody's feeling happy, and those are just photos of dancers. No comment. So that was the welcoming ceremony, and I think you might not understand the language, but they are the singing in praise of the mayor. You know, new guests coming in, and people had a lot of fun. And then you can pick it from the governor's office.
All right, this again is at the governor's office. I'm going through the governor's and committee address.
Council's overreaching goals, and our administrative staff is responsible for the projects that fulfill those goals. Our community has taken over 100 years to get to where it is today, and our growth has not come without its struggles. We have seen economic hardships, collapses of industry, weather catastrophes, and all in the manner of human challenges. But our community is resilient, has never faltered in one aspect. We are always willing to help. Help has always been available when our community needs it, and so we work to make sure that we provide help when it is asked of us.
And this is actually the cabinet of the governor. The tallest gentleman on the left is Adrian. He's the Minister of Tourism, correct? And on my left, directly to my left, that is Minister Wakala. He is the Health Minister. Both those two gentlemen and the governor on my right were all here for the delegation back in 2018. Some of you will remember, and they were part of the governor's team for that 2018 visit. So that's all that were in attendance for that particular meeting. Again, back to some more discussion, addressing the governor and some of the dealings and struggles that they have going on a regular basis. Myself signing off on the guest book, and back to some of the meeting and another guest book signing down below. Myself and the governor again. I think I did mention before, I'm wearing the chain, Megan, chain of office, that's correct, yes, thank you. The chain of office, that's the first official wearing of the chain of office as opposed to our original photos that we did just after the election last year. So that was the first official function that I actually wore the chain of office, which you're familiar with is the chain related to everybody going back to the first mayor that was ever here. So every name on there and their terms are on all those insignia metal pieces that are attached to that particular chain. So quite an honor to wear that. Thank you. Yes, it was quite an honor to wear that, and it's the governor kept calling me, "You're all roped up," he said. That's how I referred to that anyway. I don't know, we probably didn't discuss that was happening per se, but this is part of our formal allotment to be able to do so as per policy, Mr. Tebow, correct? We checked into that beforehand, weren't sure if we wanted to actually haul that all the way to Kenya, but that's very appropriate, so that's exactly what we did. It wasn't too bad, it fit in the suitcase relatively well, all things considered, so that was part of that process anyway.
Almighty God, in your wisdom and goodness and providence of leaders and country assemblies, for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with abundant favor as your servants, who will be pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this country. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation His soldiers are thankful honor as we promote honor and glory and advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests we committed to our charity. Amen. Exit. Honorable members, allow me to make communication in recognition of persons who have accompanied His Worship the Mayor. We have with us John Olwa, who is the Chief Finance Officer, Taba Town in Canada. Would you be outstanding, John? Would you welcome John, please? Thank you. Mothers, George, I want to invite the Mayor to give his address to you.
It is true that Tabor has had the good fortune of approximately a century of irrigation and technological advances that have allowed our region to prosper. Our modern prosperity is built upon the backs of a long history of struggle and innovation. And we are very humbled to be able to start the process of sharing that with the people of Saya. Our government works closely with our irrigation districts, who are responsible for the improvement and efficiency operation of water management in our area. They help the region with future planning, regular upgrading, and proactive maintenance in all aspects of irrigation lines, water storage, and allocation of water rights for users. Tabor has irrigation districts to help manage our water needs, and as our government, we are grateful to have such expertise in our region.
So again, that was a county assembly address, as per their ask as well. And I believe you're all aware that I did an address virtually last year as well to the assembly, right from the council chambers here. And so this was actually the second formal event where I wore the second and last that I wore the chain of office for that purpose. So that was quite a formal format. That's basically like going to the legislature and presenting to Premier Kenny and crew with exactly what we did there. So it was fairly formal event, but that was basically just done for us. It was a special address on our behalf for them that they set up for us to do just that. So we were there, I don't know, maybe half an hour all total, I guess, right? But it's very impressive, as you can see with some of the photos in there, the video, very impressive chambers. And Mr. Speaker's Mr. George Okodi, quite the gentleman and very interesting fellow to speak to, and welcomed us with open arms as well, and treated us very well as they did wherever we went, actually. But that was an impressive visit, and happy to be part of that as well. That's just some more with the speaker and his assistant on my right, and myself with the county speaker as well.
So the next one is just the hospitality and the people of Siaya, the tour in the region. So this one took us to different places. This one was a very special occasion because it was an exhibition headed by the Egg Department. That is the Minister for Egg Agriculture there, shaking hands with the mayor. And they had a very good presentation there. The young lady on the right is awesome. What she's done is she's invented stuff there that nobody knows. And I think she's on a roll here. I think she invented some kind of, what were they calling, some juice, whatever, that can now feed the whole of Siaya. And I think she's going places and they're trying to take her to some nice area so that she can continue with her invention. The next one. The next one, so on the left, I think that was pretty good. That was part of the welcome by the Egg Department. As you can see the maple leaf there. There was a cake for the mayor. I think I disappeared somewhere, but it was her, so I didn't want to be seen there. Now, on the right, that is the mayor's residence. That is secured area that nobody could enter there, and that is the chief protocol officer, the only person who was allowed in the mayor's residence area to check what was going on. Now, on the top left, that is the tea plantation. So that is tea. It covers a wide range of fields. That's part of the Rift Valley. We are pointing at the tea area. Then the next one is another popular waterfalls. We had a chance to go there and visit and look at the area as well. And then on the side, I think the mayor picked some pipe there that nobody knows when it was left there, but it's been there for a while. I know you were checking if water was flowing, but I assure you there was nothing like water flowing through. So that was a good scene there. And then this one, the bottom there, that is Lake Victoria. So why that picture is important is there's a lot of fishing going on in Lake Victoria. So what they've done is to avoid depletion of fish, they've started put in fish cages. So if you look at on the left, the top there in the lake, they're putting fish cages to put in rear more fish so that they can have plenty to eat. And you can see, of course, the security is always making sure that the mayor is not harmed in any way. And then on the top bottom there is a pump. So this pump, I call it 1900 pump. This is the pump that they're using for irrigation. I think it's a 10-acre test area, putting up some tomatoes and vegetables. And it's about, is it 1,000 feet from the lake? So it pumps for about 5 minutes, then it stops until the following day. So I think it caught mayor's attention. That's why he decided to take a picture of that pump. I think it's a diesel pump. It's very, very old. I don't know the last time that's what they could afford. Again, this is more areas we are looking at. If you remember that falls I was talking about, so the water flows down. So we went down to the fall to see what was happening underneath with all those rocks and bamboos. And this one here is their wastewater plant. And again, which year did they say it was built? 18 something, I don't know. But anyway, that's what they're trying to use at the moment. And I think that was why they were talking about the wastewater plant as part of the things that we need to look at jointly. And then the top left of that is just part of Siaya town. It's just a fountain in the park area. And then on the top right is, that's a stadium. They're putting up a 30,000 capacity stadium. And it's just about to be complete. We took a tour there also as well, just the mayor signing some of the paperwork. Guest book at the stadium area. And then on the top bottom there, again, the mayor wanted to figure out what is this tea? What does it look like? Well, how does it smell? So she bent there to smell the tea, but I think the tea itself, when it is growing like that, it has no smell. Again, maybe the video might show a few things. 2 minutes?
It's a little less than 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Got 2 minutes. So that is what is happening right? Big investment.
So apart from the maize, apart from the corn, they grow millet and sorghum. And I think the mayor wanted to see the difference. So the sorghum and the millet comes at the top. Of course, the corn comes at somewhere in between. So it was just a figuring out exactly what it looks like. And that's part of the staple food that they have. We continue.
Actually, our delegates are just going to add one thing before we break, and then maybe start with our delegation. I was just going to add just one thing, just what Mr. Orwa already spoke of. But part of that, the irrigation and/or wastewater and potable water, looking there. But we didn't have it. We thought we did have some pictures, but we couldn't locate it for some reason. But walking into that plant. I'm looking at that walking into 60 or 70 years ago, and it was almost archaic actually, that it was functioning even. Like this is the irrigation at off the lake site, but that doesn't look too bad for the age. But the rest of what we looked at in the wastewater location was
unbelievable, is actually functional. So what they told us, that we twinned with Bondo Town. Bondo Town is actually 58,000 people and a variety of different residents, very, very poor residential and some decent residents there as well, and some high-end residents, but very poor overall. And what they're dealing with the wastewater and potable water issues there is they're only able to get that to 25% of that 58,000. So that was quite overwhelming to me to hear that, how they were dealing with that kind of limited function for water and wastewater. And as well as they also deal with 68 hours worth of power failure a day on a regular basis and just cannot, I don't know, they didn't get into very detail, but they're really struggling with that, with just what they're able to provide. But it's 68-hour power failure. If you can imagine, you get an hour power failure here, people are getting pretty excited if that ever should happen. That does occasionally, but pretty rare, all things considered. So that was another eye-opener to say that that's kind of what they're dealing with in that area. Just basically able to service 25% of their population within the Bondo Town. So with that, I think we'll just break, if that's all right, and we don't want to have our delegation wait too long, so I'll finish shortly. And Mr. Thibault, if you wouldn't mind introducing our delegation from Parallel Church, here to speak on a potential project that they're willing to offer and suggest for the Parallel Church property and or the town of Taber.
So I went over and asked, and I believe I've got it correct. It's Renee Angermeyer that's going to come up and present. Basically just looking for some type of partnership or discussion around this particular presentation.
All right, thank you. Mr. Angermeyer, welcome.
All right, yeah, thanks
Jill,
for having
welcome
us.
also.
So, yeah, my name's Renee, this is my wife Jill. So we're the campus pastors at Parallel Church here in town. And my wife also works at Johnson's. I teach at Taber Christian School as well. I've been in Taber 19 years now, and I really love seeing what's happening with our downtown and just the revitalization that's happening. Across the street from us, the new bank that went in and the loft there, it's like, wow. And when we took over as campus pastors of the church in 2019, our building looked ugly. And the first thing I said is, if we're taking this thing over, like, we need to do something to the outside. So first thing we did was painted the outside of the property, made it look nice from the highway. We did switch names a year ago, but it's the same people running the church, just under a new name. We have some new signage coming over the next few weeks here that's going to really brighten up the place and make it look nice. But our parking lot needs to be done. I'm pretty sure the last time that pavement was done was in 1966 or 1967 when it was Safeway. And so I started looking at that about a couple months ago and getting some prices just on repaving our parking lot. Then we went away on holidays and we came back in from being in British Columbia for a week and we had to pick something up at the church. And I just saw it with new eyes. I'm like, man, we drive by this building, this property all the time. The property is starting to look run down and old, and everything else around Taber, downtown is being fixed up. And I thought, let's not just have a new parking lot, let's make it a parking lot. And the idea there is adding some trees and sidewalks and benches to just make it look nice from the highway. We have so much highway frontage there that people coming through, instead of seeing weeds and old beat up fence and ugly parking lot, why not add some trees and different things to just help beautify the downtown? And the other idea we had is, I believe, just from reading some different things from the museum and just looking up different things online, that our property is the original spot of Tank 77, which is where Taber started. I'm pretty sure right outside our back door, the actual foundation is still there for it. So the idea is, and talking with a few people from around town, is I think it'd be pretty cool to rebuild Tank 77. Have it there on the highway in its original location, or pretty close to it, and having a spot where people, when driving by, could see it. and also having a spot for people just walking through, whether they're at the loft, grabbing an ice cream from Purple Cow, or just walking downtown. Just another place to sit. As a church, what we love to do is be outside in the community as much as possible as well. And so right now what we're looking for, it's not an ask for money today. We have some pricing on what this is going to cost, but just looking for, I guess, a question, like, would you like to partner with us on that? Is it something the town would like to do with us? And there's more questions. We have wall-to-wall design. Rochelle Wall designed, came up with the first draft. We're willing to switch that up. I think it looks pretty good as is, but we're willing to change things as well. But the idea is just having more outdoor space right downtown Taber that people could use. Do you want to add anything?
No, just that something that is nice and something that's cohesive, so matching trees with what the bank has done, what the downtown Main Street has done, just to make it more unified in the downtown core. Knowing that eventually the Chamber of Commerce will be built at the end of the block as well. Just kind of tying in the whole street as a whole and beautifying that spot instead of just two businesses that look amazing and then the rest of us just kind of look sad and tired. It's just a nice spot because I've been at the loft when their patio has been overflowing and you can't sit anywhere. So having these picnic tabled spots right across the street where a lot of their customers are parking anyways because there's no parking on the street for them to access the loft. It'd be nice to be able to partner with them in that way as well. But just somewhere nice where people can kind of socialize, hang out, and something that just looks like you'd want to hang out there.
Yeah, and we're willing right from day one to say it's open to the public. Like, we've never said no to anyone besides some food trucks that came in, some of those older, uglier ones. We're like, oh, yeah, no thanks, please don't park there. Because we want it to look nice in our own parking lot as well. We'd like to do things with excellence around our building, and when we do this, we want to do it right from day one, and invite others to use it as well.
Yeah, since the downtown core uses it as parking as well, it'd be nice to make it so they're not hitting potholes when they're coming in. Like, some of that concrete is chipping up and it's not the greatest look, but yeah, something that we're working on.
Everything on, most of what's on the design that you see in front of you is on our property, but there's a few spots that would be town property. The northwest corner, just outside the sidewalk area where those pavers and trees would be town property. The rest of it is on our property.
And I believe Communities in Bloom has a little corner there too that they're taking care of.
So yeah, like I said, basically just for information today, but we're hoping to do this soon. Like, we don't want to wait. We want to get going as soon as possible. So different ideas are, for funding. I mean, could we as a church fund it? Possibly. We could look at different ways of doing that. But especially having like the Tank 77 part of it and having the matching pavers and making it part of the downtown, I think that's where partnership would be nice in some way.
Or if there's any historical grants or anything for that part of it.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions arising for our delegation? Pretty quiet group. All right, thank you. Councilor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it looks fantastic there, what you've come up with there. Being that it's privately owned, I don't know what the town can do to help. Your idea of the Tank 77 replica, if we're able to help at all with grants with that. But I just, I'm sure in favor of it being done. It's just a matter of how.
Yeah, right.
But it looks really good. If we could do something like that, it would really enhance the area there.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilor Bruin said, that it's a beautiful project, and like the generosity of you guys willing to, build it and then have it open to the general public. And the fact that it's on the highway, I agree. Some of the properties along the highway are not always the prettiest. But if you guys are willing to beautify that, that's awesome. And as far as financial contributions, sometimes that's challenging as far as budgets go, but I'm sure that the town would be able to assist with grant applications too. And so it might be a good avenue to pursue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, and overall, I think it's a great project, great concept, and thank you so much for all your efforts thus far, and thank you to Rochelle also for doing the official design. That's a fair share of work as well. I think there's been some discussion about the Tank 77 location. We have our Town of Tabor pins that deal with Tank 77, the train, steam train. So that's very authentic in the Town of Tabor history with that, and our natural history. That's everything information-wise at the museum and on our website with everything attached to that. Megan does a great job with updating that regularly. And unfortunately, there's still people that are not aware that Tank 77 was called Tank 77 before Tabor. So there's many people that have lived here for some time that are not aware of that for whatever reason. So I try to spread that word as much as I can anytime I'm passing out pins, that sort of thing for sure. So it's always an interest to anybody I've talked to. And it's very, very appropriate. And I think location-wise, it doesn't get better than that. It's like I said, it's you're feet away from just the backside of the building where that original location was for the tank. So I guess if I could ask a question or two to the administration, is this something that we could research a little further, and maybe with Gollum and his grant expertise on things like that we could do to collaborate and or potentially partner with Parallel Church for this particular suggestion and or tweaking as they're open to as well?
So administration would be inclined to do whatever council would ask us to do, as usual. But we certainly could, if we went with something like the recommendation that was placed before you, we could certainly go through a process and see where the town can assist and maybe some areas where we can't assist. But certainly we'd be willing to do council's bidding.
All right. Yeah, so thank you. All things considered, like I said, I think it's got some great possibilities, and it would be great to see something work out and come to fruition sooner or later, ideally. But we got some work to do, obviously, to try to make that happen and go from there. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. It was very well done. I'm in favor of a project of this nature because the parking lot is extremely ugly as it is. It's terrible. Mr. Mayor, I don't think we should put administration on the spot at present time. I'd like to make a motion as recommended, and we can go from there.
Sure, you bet.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council recommends proceeding to the development application process for the proposed project.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation. Appreciate that very much.
Your time, and like I said, we want to see this done, and we're willing to do what it takes to make it happen. So let us know what we can do next, and let's work together.
All right. We will be in touch. Thank you. All right, if we can, I guess, yeah, well, we got to finish our presentation, but again, just another question here. Either we break for a meal break and come back and finish the presentation and or go into closed, or we finish our presentation, go for the meal break, and then go to closed.
Let's get it over with.
Oh.
No, in a good way.
Oh, okay. All right, Jack, we'll go with that. Okay, we'll carry on, yeah. Okay. We're into the security portion. Security, yeah. There we go. Okay. I believe I talked to most of you about some of the highlights with our security team, and it was quite unexpected but very welcome at the same time. And that's part of it, a big part of that right there. We had 5 heavily armed security members with us at all times while we were in Sayai County. And even in our compound, locked compound, razor wire, walled, etc., locked gates. We had 2 individuals overnight as well. And, you know, all things considered, I personally wasn't worried about that. Mr. Rowe and I had some discussion about that prior to getting there. Personally, I was not worried about that at all, and, you know, there's a fair share that don't speak good English, but there was not one time ever when we went anywhere where there was anybody that made mention or made any comments. Nothing. Mind you, we've got this team with us as well, so that may have contributed to that. But I honestly don't think there's any real issue. The governor's looking after us as best he can. We're under his charge while we're in the country. So I understand why they're going to those lengths, and I sure appreciated myself and Mr. Rowe. I appreciated that very much. But good guys, pretty casual, and, you know, just working guys, and just fun-loving type personalities, and they really looked after us and showed us a good time, and we had no concern about security, even to the point where there were some areas wildlife-wise. They have some legitimate trouble with crocodiles and/or snakes, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Rowan? Where they told us that there could be a chance that they would have to literally take out one of those threats. So, as it turned out, we never saw either, but they were prepared for that as well. So, again, they were looking after us all the way around. This is a visit at the hospital in Bondo Town. That's Minister Wakala again. Welcoming us there to the hospital visit. That was quite impressive in many ways to see, but also quite surprising or shocking in some ways how they've got such an open hospital area. We were literally by 3 different wards within feet of open rooms, you know, right to ICU people. And I was quite shocked. There were like 15 of us in the tour, and we were just within feet of these very ill individuals. But by that same token, they had a lot of cleaning going on while we were there. It didn't look to be unkept. It was just an open, for the most part, open building. No doors to enter, just basically hallways and long hallways with rooms attached to that. And fairly open-ended overall. They did have a CAT scan unit that they were quite proud of. That's quite an improvement for them. They've had for the last couple of years, so they will do some high-end medical treatments and medical diagnosis as a result. So they also realize they're very backward and very lacking in some of that technology, but they're doing what they can as best they can, and overall, like I said, it was impressive in some ways and not so much in others. Just what I'm used to seeing here in Alberta. We're very fortunate how good we've got it that way for the medical world. So quite different in that respect. Again, just the people part of the tour of the hospital location there at the end of the tour. And this was kind of the highlight, the signing ceremony of the twinning agreement. Myself and Mr. Orr also at the table, and the governor beside me as well there.
Today is most certainly a historic day. Today we signed the Declaration of Collaboration that unites our two communities in lasting friendly relations between the town of Taber and the town of Bondo. Though we may be separated by great distances, friendship knows no borders. And it is with great pleasure and humility that we are gathered here today to mark what is the very first step in a friendship that will last throughout the generations.
And Mayor will exchange the MOUs. Thank you. I'm sure.
That's just some photos after the actual twinning agreement was signed, and dinner held as well to celebrate that particular occasion. And we're just outside the restaurant location at that particular area. Yeah, yeah.
You
All right.
eat well, Mr. Mayor?
Pardon me?
Did you eat well?
We ate very well, yes. Mr. John Orwell told me we would, and we definitely did. Mr. John Orwell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So what you're going to see here, this is cultural drumming experience. Now, I have to admit that I broke the protocol, and I requested the chief of protocol that I would break the protocol, because I wanted us to have at least an hour or two at my home. So I laid an ambush on the mayor, and I didn't tell him exactly what was going to happen. And as soon as I got into the home, I changed to my regular clothes, and those are the white robes, right? Because that's how we grew up. So it was a church day. It was on a Friday, traditional church. So this is just independent formed African churches. It's just like the Pentecostal that we have in here. So what they do is they just improvise, look for drums, and they just praise the Lord based on what they have. So we walk into this church, and the mayor is like, "What's going on?" I said, "I have to change into my white clothes, and we are going to praise the Lord in there." So we go in there, and then he's told to speak. He spoke for about almost 20 minutes. I don't think that is in here. But those are in here to speak for about 20 minutes. And through Dr. Bani, who was interpreting. So we just told him, join us and have the drum and enjoy. You can see he was, yeah, he joined, and I think that was his best moment, but I laid an ambush on him. I broke the protocol, but it had to happen. It was a Friday, and there's no way he could have gone without going to church.
Just to add on, I just got to say that I don't think there's any big problem breaking the protocol per se. It was just a bit of a time delay. We were still en route to where we were going. But we did spend a couple hours there. And it was a great pleasure to meet Mr. John Orwell's mother and family members and the relatives attached to that as well. And Dr. Bani was also there, who was related to you also. I don't think I knew that until then, actually. That you actually related to Dr. Bani that was here back in 2018. So again, it was a great pleasure to meet your mother, John, and people that were attached to that. And within 2 hours, we weren't there 20 minutes, we're eating again, and then off to church. And nothing was said. I knew nothing. It was quite interesting to see this. Everybody was getting into their whites. I'm looking, and John finally says, "We're going to church," and which is like a stone's throw from the house. Okay, I'll go to church. And we get in, and this is what's going on, and then I'm just asked to participate. So I was asked to speak. Impromptus are sometimes the best speeches that you can ever give when you're not actually fully prepared, but I think it went just fine, and it's, kind of winging it as you go, right? Sometimes you got to do that sort of thing. But it was a lot of fun, and as you can see there, and they treated us very well. It was quite a worthwhile experience, and quite thrilled to be part of that experience. And also, after the church ceremony, back to your mother's house, and guess what? We ate again. Before we're out of there for the 2-hour visit. So and then we said our goodbyes and departed beyond that to carry on to our next location. But it was a very great, pleasurable experience, and I thank you so much for that, John. That was a great experience all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So what you're seeing is this is just part of the local museum. So the first one on the top left is where the first vice president was buried. And then outside there, they have also the museum with a lot of stuff. We just picked a few pictures in it. And I think you can see the mayor was very curious to see Muhammad Ali there. And I think that was a good capture as well.
None of Barack Obama?
We passed by. But some of those pictures we didn't bring in.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question, Councilor Brown. The Obama residence was what, within, feet, I guess, we drove by the gate or drove by on the roadway, but I don't think it was accessible for anybody to visit, correct?
Yeah, it was highly protected.
Yeah, for sure, but we did see it, so what we could see, anyway. So this is the farewell dinner, put on by the governor as well. Some of the gift exchange, I guess maybe get Mr. Raw to explain some of the whisk format there.
So the mayor was given, one of the gifts the mayor was given was a black fly whisk, which is one of the highest honors to be bestowed upon dignitaries. So what you do is when you're given a fly whisk like that, it's normally given either to presidents or traditional chiefs. And when you are given those kind of gifts, you have to sit on a 3-legged traditional stool, which I think is also going to show you. So you have to wave the fly whisk as, wishing your subjects well and talking to them. So he was given the black one, but as an upcoming leader, me, I only got the white one. So I'm not there yet.
All right, again, this is part of the gift exchange there, and myself with a Town of Tabor hat for Adrian. I believe he had tea for us, and the gift exchange we had for the governor and several other dignitaries there as well. And so just to go through the gifts here, this is kind of the highlight, it's a fairly weighty stool that they have with my name on it. And it is, yeah. You see that? But very, very well made, and quite an honor to receive that. And Mr. John Orwa received one also, and also very well made, hardwood type format. Gary asked me what type of wood that is. I don't know, John. What type of wood is that?
This is one of those, I don't know whether it's mahogany.
Okay.
The hard wood, because this thing stays forever.
All right, and these are kind of unique. This is kind of a harp violin type unit that we didn't actually see being used, but that's what it's for, anyways. However you play it, but and Mr. John Orrock can maybe hum a tune or two, and with makeshift guitar. And you saw
This is a very hard instrument to play. Yeah, you see the way they play. This is a very hard instrument to play because there's that coordination with the jingles hitting and doing this, and you're very lucky to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely authentic. Their form of guitar. They didn't include the jingle format, so they must not have felt I was coordinated enough to handle it. I didn't ask why. Yeah. And the third stool, this is for an individual. Is he here? Where'd he go?
He's gone.
Oh, did he leave? Mr. Shear, did he leave? Oh, okay.
Don't say that's for
I
Gary.
assumed he was staying. So I'll have to say, yes, this is for Mr. Gary Shear. And also the hardwood variety, a little different design on that. But this was courtesy of Adrian, the tall fellow there that I'm standing beside. That dwarfs me and anybody he's in the room with, actually. Close to 7 foot, I think he is. But this is from him himself. And Gary, when Adrian was here, Gary spent quite a bit of time with him. So he insisted that we pass this on to Mr. Shear as well. So we'll certainly see that he gets this. Where are we at, John? I don't have it here, actually. I should have brought that in. I'll show you another day, Councillor Beckert, but we'll show you both the black and white varieties another time.
Okay, I think probably that marks the end of the presentation. And hallelujah!
Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
Hallelujah! So that is very critical because in that tradition, when they end their church service, they always praise the Lord and say hallelujah. And I think that was one of the major surprises that the mayor got.
Yeah, just to confirm, Mr. John Orwa first did that at the church service at his mother's village area, and again, I wasn't expecting to go to church at all, but Mr. John Orr was speaking there and did very well through part of that religious ceremony. And I don't believe you're necessarily prepped for that either, but you've done some of that in the past, obviously, so you're very well versed in that regard. That was very obvious. And he came up with that hallelujah ending. It was like, oh, wow, that's quite something. So I had to get some of the history on that. So very impressive. So all the way around, I believe that we had a great trip there, and the Saia County, the governor's office, and anybody we visited there treated us very, very well. We accomplished our mission. And just for another footnote, that Mr. John Orwa, some of the tape, also some of the video we have, is also very highly thought of in Saia County as a returning son of Saia County, as he was born there, brought up there, and has a lot of ties there, obviously. So that was also very impressive to see. So thank you so much, John. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, members of council.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate that for putting that all together too. Yourself and Carrie helped us out there quite a lot. And all right. So with that, just to confirm, I don't believe we need a motion on that necessarily, do we, Mr. Tebow? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your patience. That did take a little longer than we were expecting, but we do have one other item to deal with, and that is item 713. Dignitary flag flying. And I think you're all aware of that. That was the agenda add-on item. And Councillor Firth, I believe you're going to take care of that. Motion required. I think that's yours. All right, Councillor Firth.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if we were discussing. Anybody have any questions? I move that council authorizes the Japanese flag to be flown at the Town of Taber Administration Building from dawn to dusk on Thursday, August 25th, 2022, in accordance with accepted flag protocols and etiquette.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to media inquiries. Mr. Tebow?
There are none.
No media inquiries whatsoever. All right. With that, I would ask for a motion to move into closed session after our 30-minute meal break. Please, Councillor Brown.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we take a break for 30 minutes and move into closed session.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?